Welcome in to Rover Sports and Shenk and Spence. I'm here with my good buddy and also my journalist friend. His name is Matt Shenko, and he joins us here live from the tri-state area. Me and you doing this podcast here today, Matt, and it's so nice here. Just got a new camera set up, but Shenk, man, what a freaking day for Giants football. You're repping the hat, man. Just tell me the emotions. What's going on with you today, Shenk?
I am very, very excited, man. It made my day. It made my week. It made my year. I tell you, this is a unbelievable move. This is a power move that John Mara made for this New York football Giant franchise. And when you look at this team now I am very proud, obviously to wear this Giants hat today in front of you, fans out there, because, we basically, quote unquote, cleaned house. And this is what I've been talking about for so long now. And we finally did it, got rid of, the McAdoos of the world, the Jerry Reeses of the world, finally being able to start over from scratch and really just start to build this team from the ground up and really get back to that Giants football, that ground and pound, tough defense, type of football that we are accustomed to for the New York Giants. Very excited, man. I'm looking forward to it. And, I just want to get your thoughts really, really quickly as well as we dive into this segment.
Yeah, man. Like yesterday, you told me that you were watching the football game, and I honestly was just tracking it on my phone, and I was doing whatever possible to assure myself that I've never wanted the Giants to lose a football game more than yesterday. At times, I've wanted them to lose games. But when I saw like Oakland, turn the ball, you got the Giants to turn it over on the goal line. I heard the reports earlier in the day on Sunday, and the only thing that could have prolonged it was a convincing win in Oakland. And then when it was a 7-point loss and all the chatter, all the rumbling started to happen, it really is just such a breath of fresh air, having Ben Mcadoo gone. And he just was like a dark, evil cloud over this franchise. And people, Shenko, want to talk about the 11-5 season. And I think it's appropriate now to kind of dig into John Mara and everything about that 18-minute press conference that we heard that you can hear on Giants.com, that you could probably see on YouTube. And Shenko, I guess I'll point it. I don't want to ask such a broad question, but I wanted to say, what when John Mara said that the team was 11-5 and he was expecting much more, what did you think of that whole sentiment?
Well, I really thought that, with John Mara, this segment today, some of the things that he said really baffled me. I mean, obviously this team severely underperformed, as he did say in the press conference, and also him to mention how he is so shocked for this, 2-10, season to unfold under our very eyes. And it really comes down to the lack of, continuity that John Mara had, especially over the past week or so. I mean, when you look at how the Eli Manning situation was handled very poorly, even in today's press conference, he took, quote unquote, full responsibility for everything that's happened over the past week or so. And it really is unfortunate. And because, I feel like, no matter what, you can fire McAdoo, you can fire Reese, but I really feel that Eli Manning's, his relationship with the Giants now is forever tarnished, because, when you look at this, how could you not be tarnished from it? Obviously you're going to feel some type of way about this. And with Eli, the way he's been playing, 213 consecutive starts, for him to just bench a guy for Geno Smith, and, there's so much Mara could even pull the plug. He should have pulled the plug. He didn't have the opportunity to. He should have, and that's a mistake that he's going to regret for the rest of his life. But it's really the way everything unfolded. It seems like the Wellington Mara would have never, ever let this happen. And for John Mara to let this unfold, he's definitely, rolling over in his grave. And a lot of Giants fans are really just, beside themselves right now, the way everything's been handled. So, he took full responsibility. You can't change what happened. But, it shows me today, that press conference, is the lack of, of leadership, from John Mara that you would expect. You would expect a guy to make really bold decisions. And I don't mean to keep going on and on about this, but the last point I'll make before I turn it over to you is, when you bring in a guy now for the future, now my big question to you now is, how are you going to handle, having Eli there, maybe for them, to be able to turn over the reins to a Davis Webb or a Sam Darnold or a Josh Rosen? Who's going to be able to pick that GM going forward? And, is Eli going to be part of that future or not? Because I feel like it has to be definitive, this coming off season. And if that is or not, you're going to roll with the punches with Eli for a couple more years, or you're going to go in a completely different direction. And I really feel the Giants really need to do that this offseason to really solidify it because, let's be honest, the Giants' brass and front staff over this past season has been in shambles. So now you need to make another power move and saying, okay, we're going to either go with Eli a couple more years or we're going to go in a completely different direction. And that's how I really feel about it, and I feel passionate about it. But I want to get your take on this and how you feel what the Giants should do going forward and how they should handle it going forward.
Yeah, you pointed out that, Eli's reputation with John Mara is tarnished, and I think that today's move by John Mara to insert Eli back in, to fire McAdoo, I think that was a tremendous move by John Mara. It expressed his apology. I really enjoyed what he had to do today, what he had to say, and it was really an Eli versus McAdoo thing. And in the press conference, he kept on replaying how, Jerry Reese had such a great relationship with the players. Jerry Reese, I had an emotional time with him. Jerry Reese, 2008. And with McAdoo, it was always like he was professional, he was, with the players. And John Mara never uttered that Ben Mcadoo was a great communicator to these players. And when he was asked about the Eli thing, he was stuttering all over the place. It was clear. And you know what, Shenko? He let this one out of the bag. He said with Eli Manning and the home schedule versus our rivals, it was important to make this move now because of money, but also because the Giants fans, actually the former players were planning a walkout on the field if Eli wasn't starting. Like Strahan, Plexico, everybody going to come back, Osi Manura, Toomer. That would have been insane. But I think it's going to be very hard now for Spagnuolo and this guy to bench Eli Manning. I don't think that the relationship is fractured at all. I think Eli Manning, now, what I would want to see is I hope that Eli Manning, just because of everything he's done for Giants Nation, I hope Eli Manning gets to stay another 2 years. Even if they want to draft Josh Rosen, Eli's the perfect guy to mentor these young quarterbacks. And, the key is with the next head coach, we got to get a coach, in my opinion. I would love a coach that gets along with Eli Manning to a T. Even as crazy as it sounds, there's his college coach, David Cutcliffe, or a guy like Tony Dungy that got along with his brother really well. Someone that can relate to these players is so critical because Ben McAdoo was the absolute worst at relating to these players, at getting the locker room to buy in together. And in today's press conference, that's exactly what Mara kind of said. And Shenko, it really is, like you said, is it Eli or not? And I think that this defense, man, is still good enough. There's a ton of talent on this team. What did you think, though, Shenko, about Mara today when he said, we need a new general manager before we pick a head coach? What did you think of that? What did you think of that comment, the general manager before head coach?
I absolutely love that comment because when you look at, when you build a team from the ground up, you need a GM that really can evaluate talent and being able to evaluate talent and picking that right head coach to be able to, bring the best out of your players. I think that is obviously, the forefront, of your success for your football team. I mean, we can relate it to how the Rooneys of the Pittsburgh Steelers have really, faced, their organization. I mean, they've had 3 coaches in the last 60 years with Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher and Mike Tomlin. So there's so much continuity, and that's just amazing in itself to have that,
But so do we,
success.
This was the shortest tenured coach ever, though, that the Giants have had.
I know, and that's one of those things that Mara really, wet the bed on this pick, for head coach. I mean, we've talked about it, 2 years ago. You didn't like the hire. I mean, I was excited about the hire at the time, and But the thing is, when you look at, this team now, I think it's important to really evaluate, talent. You need to bring a guy in, like you said, to be able to evaluate players and really get the best out of these players. You need a fiery guy. You need definitely, because McAdoo was just a, deer in the headlights type of guy, non-motivating type of guy, always suspending players. There was no, the step in the right directions in the locker room at all.
Man. He was like an evil person. He was a disciplinarian, like a teacher. I don't think he has one heartstring in his body. He treated these guys like they were machinery, not like actual human beings. And that's why the locker room just crumbled, because he can't relate to these players. He didn't give a crap about the players. He just ran them into the ground. So we need a very human coach. That's why, I know sometimes nice guys, we can't play physical, but I want a physical Giants team with a very nice guy. I think Tony Dungy would be great. I want the polar opposite. I don't want us to be, I don't want our next head coach to be soft and not run the ball. But I also want a head coach like a Gruden or a Harbaugh or a Tony Dungy that these players absolutely love and that Eli can love. And I'd also, Shenko, get rid of Geno Smith, trim a lot of the fat off of this team. There's players that are distractions that the ownership needs to find out, whether it's Jack Rabbit, whether it's DRC, some of the guys getting suspended. Of course, Odell Beckham is a huge distraction now. He's a big talent. And these are all really important decisions for the general manager to make. And on this podcast, as we go later on, I want to divulge my plan and kind of see where you are thinking as well.
I totally agree with what you're saying. It's so important when you realize the future of this football team now heading in the right direction. And, you have, a lot of question marks, obviously, with the defensive side. And obviously, who's going to be able to protect whoever's at quarterback in 2018 for the New York Football Giants. Sure. And one thing that really worries me, going into next year, before we dive into our plan for the Giants' future, is will Eli be around next year? I feel like the problem with that is, Eli, I don't know what he's thinking right now. I'm sure he's going through a lot of emotions. It's been a very tough year, for him in this entire franchise. So I'm wondering if he really wants to either stick around for the rebuilding process for the New York Giants or he wants to go to a contender like somebody who like the Jaguars. Perfect fit. Tom Coughlin would love to have him again. And I just don't know. I mean, does Eli want to retire as a Giant? I mean, I know he really loves the Giants organization, but we'll see in the next coming months if he really loves this organization so much because of how they've been treating him the past week or so. So I don't know what's going to happen. That's a huge question mark going into this offseason. And we'll see how it unfolds going forward.
I suddenly think that the next 4 games are incredibly important for Eli Manning. And I'm just so excited just sitting here talking to you. I mean, I spoke to members of my family, and suddenly this Giants-Cowboys game, I think the reception is going to be incredible. I mean, I was on social media. It was 100% just pure, euphoria when Ben Mcadoo was released. Everybody was dancing in the streets. Everybody. This day was just fantastic that this day finally came. And with Eli Manning now being reinserted into the lineup, I don't think it's going to be so awkward for Sullivan or Spags to now pull Eli Manning. There's so much momentum. We saw our son pretty much get ousted, get casted away. And now suddenly Eli Manning returns like a hero gliding in the Giants stadium. The crowd's going to be crazy for the Dallas game. And I think if Eli Manning balls out and this defense buys in and the black cloud of McAdoo is gone, I want to see guys play with their hair on fire. I want to see guys I think that now you just the witch is dead, and I want to see these guys just come in, and I think our defense is just going to play lights out. And you look at Eli Manning, I think now is a huge opportunity for him, because the thing is, if we get a head coach that Eli Manning supports, it's just going to be a lot more harmonious than, first off, Shenko, I know Maris said that he wants Webb to play, but Maris said he also wants to win games. First off, Shenko, will you agree, if Eli Manning does not finish the season, I think that I think that that's a sign that he will be gone if he does not play every snap the rest of the way.
I think that's an interesting point you bring up, because when you look at Eli, guy who started, 213 consecutive starts, and to be benched to Geno, and to really, take a backseat to this, quote unquote rebuilding process the Giants are undergoing right now. And like I said before, I don't even think that he would want to be a part of that going forward. And when you look at Eli, he's been in 2 Super Bowls. I mean, he's been in big games, and I just feel like he would love to, maybe, go to another city to be able to get another ring, for 3 rings.
Right now, though, that John Mara made this move for Eli right now. Like, I think that he's back in his good graces, actually. I saw a lot of people say, oh, now Eli's back starting. Eli shouldn't even start for that franchise again. But you know what? I think that Eli now, I think that Eli's going to be all in. He's going to try to save his job with the Giants.
Yeah.
For the future. These next 4 games, Shenko.
I hope so. I mean, hopefully everything that's happened, it could, wave off everything that's happened to Eli. And I'm just going through a lot of emotions right now, how everything's going to play and unfold. And
I want to ask you a question, okay? So the next head coach comes in. The next head coach comes in. And the next head coach in the offseason, his first move is jettisoning Eli and sending Eli out, to Jacksonville and Denver. And the GM, the first move of this next GM will be cutting probably my favorite player that's ever donned Giants blue, maybe one of my favorites ever, since we're only in our early 20s and we were even young for the Taylor, the Armstead days, Strahan and Sehorn and whatnot, Kerry Collins. Mm-hmm. But Shenko, could you imagine how awkward that's going to be for that general manager, to send Eli Manning off? That would be very uncomfortable, and I don't advise it at all. I want Eli to be involved in this organization for the next 2 to 3 years. If he can't win another ring and his play deteriorates, and it's very apparent, then you just simply move on from him in a professional manner at the end of season or whatnot. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and to go back to what we were talking about with the Mara situation, the press conference, he was saying that he was going to bring in Ernie Accorsi, a consultant, to be able to hire the new GM for the Giants. I mean, everybody that's a big Giants fan knows Ernie Accorsi is the guy who scouted Eli Manning and brought him to New York and made that magical, 2004 Rivers for Manning trade happen. And I'm really excited that he's going to be helping us to be able to bring, a new GM, really a new fire, a new energy to New York. And I'm just seeing how it's going to line up, how they're going to face this situation. Because I'll tell you right now, the Giants are in a really tough spot. I mean, I don't know. No matter way you slice it and dice it, it's really a tough situation. I see this team
that tough of a situation.
I just feel like the Giants brass and Eli are going in completely two different directions, and it's such a bad situation, and I don't know if it could ever be fixed, because not even because of everything that's happened. You have Jerry Reese, who put it up this really porous roster over the past 2 or 3 years, has not been able to protect Eli, not being able to surround him with any, offensive talent to be able to help out, with the protection scheme and everything. And he was not ever in the right scheme with that McAdoo offense for him to really flourish. So I feel like once that happened, everything is turning off all. Well, does Eli still have enough? Well, to answer that question, I think he still has, what it takes to really, do well in the playoffs. He still has, I think, a little bit left in the tank to prove. Yeah. And, if you put him on a team, that, is ready to win now, a great offensive line, great wide receivers, a running game, because the Giants have never had a running game in the past 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And I feel like if he has that, and he doesn't have it with the New York Giants, obviously, right now, because they're in rebuilding mode, thanks to Reese's horrible picks. I just don't see how Eli would want to stick around for it and really be the second guy to New York because he's been the main guy. He wants to be that main guy, but I just feel like with the horrible decisions that have been made, he has put in such a really awkward and terrible spot. He's an aging quarterback. So when you look at that situation, I just feel like Eli could be on the way out. And rightfully so. He should stick it to the New York Brass because how he's been handled in the whole situation. And, I wish Eli the best, whatever he chooses to do. And I just really hope everything works out for him because I really am an Eli fan, ever since he got drafted out of Ole Miss. And the way they've been treating him is really, utmost disrespect to utmost proportions.
It was horrible disrespect, and I know Mara's not going to say it, but that's really the reason why McAdoo was fired. I think today was a huge step in repairing the relationship. I think Eli Manning wants to stay as a Giant. I think he's going to play his ass off these next 4 weeks, and this is where I disagree with you. I want to disagree with you a little bit.
Okay.
You look at the Giants, they've had like the most injuries in the NFL, and even Mara said that 41 guys have been banged up during the year, which is a record, number of injuries. I think that there's issues in the conditioning program, and I think that with Ben McAdoo, the way he coaches the offensive line, he coaches them to be very fast, very mobile, and not physical blockers. It's not a physical training camp. It's a very, up-tempo, soft, Pac-12 offense that we've been talking about, So I think the new coach would put in a conditioning program that would get Justin Pugh to play better, that would get Richburg to play better. I know that the guards are still awful. I know that, it's tough to get behind Fluker and Eric Flowers. I mean, Eric Flowers, in the past couple of games, he's proven that he can run block, and they're putting, Ben McAdoo put these players in awful positions. I look at Spagnuolo. I think defensively, even Mara said the defense wasn't terrible to start off the year. And I think that the defense does actually have the mental capacity to be elite. And, I look at Jerry Reese, and I think that the Evan Ingram and Sterling Shepard picks were terrible. But I think a lot of that had to do with McAdoo's philosophy. I'm still grateful for the championships. I'm not as upset in Jerry Reese's effort into this hand as a lot of Giants fans. I just think that the play calling, the soft, throw Eli 50 times, I think that this franchise is talented. I'm urging the Giants not to panic. And I know that Mara said it needs to be a wholesale change, but even he said this year that it's been a perfect storm of issues and injuries and wrong time in the schedule. I don't think that the Giants are a talent of a 2-10 team. I think the Giants next year with a better schedule will be right back in the playoffs with the right leadership. And it's a retool and not a rebuild. And I'm ready to keep Eli around for 2 years and even trade back in the draft if you don't get Josh Rosen. I think Rosen's the only guy you should get. And now I want to see your plan. Do you think that the Giants should send Eli out, kind of totally scrap this thing from scratch, and just – do you think it's square one, or do you think it's like square 3 or 4?
Man, I've been going back and forth on this because it's such a really, a really interesting topic because – obviously, the whole thing, I keep bringing it up because I feel like it's just forever tarnishing. How do you not get rid of that out of your head? Eli's getting benched for Geno. You just can't get out of your head.
I think it's out. I think you're flushed. But Shenko, you flushed it out. If he wins against the Cowboys this week, the fans, MetLife Stadium is just going to be pandemonium when he wins. It's almost going to be
right. I know.
He leaves the field. He's going to shake hands with the fans. I think the fans are going to shed tears when Eli comes back out on that field. I think the Giants fans now, they want Eli to stay, to prove the haters wrong, to stick a fat one to McAdoo. I'd love nothing more than for Eli to stay next year and win a ring next year. That's my dream. That's what I want to see happen.
Yeah, that would really send him off into the sunset because obviously
and a real F you to freaking McAdoo.
Yeah, I would love to see that as much as anybody to see that. I just don't see that next year. I just don't really see it.
If his legacy is tarnished, like we're talking about, then this
and it's a shame.
Really fresh, but even if Webb comes in or Geno again, I almost can guarantee that they're not going to come in. Okay, I just think that it would take too much balls. I don't think that move's going to be made. I think Eli's playing every game out.
I do. I really think he will finish out the year if they're going to win, 2 games, 3 games, and win no games, because Eli's our guy. He's our franchise, and, you got to ride him into the end. And when you look at this team now, they're 2-10. They're devoid of talent, devoid of injuries, especially on the offensive side. But I have to disagree with you on, some – like, I really love the Evan Ingram and Shepard pick because I feel like they're two, building blocks to the future. I mean, Evan Ingram making an unbelievable catch the other day. I mean, he's had, rookie records already, for receiving yards this year. He's leading in tight ends for receiving yards this year for all rookies. So, I mean, that's nothing to shy away from. And I'm just really excited for what this team has to offer in the next year. Because I you know what? I mean, when you look at it, because you can look at it in both ways. You can look at it as a retool, or you can look at it as it from, really building for the future. I mean, look at an example. I mean, it's kind of different, situation. But, I mean, look at Peyton Manning. I mean, he kind of, with the Indianapolis Colts, I mean, he was ousted because of his injury. But, this is kind of a similar situation unfolding in New York without the injury, to Eli because of how everything's being – right, but we're 2-10, so we're really close to that.
What players do you think are completely inept on this Giants roster that Reese has created? Let's list some of the inept players.
Oh my God! I mean, some of the no names on defense I can't even name because they sign them off of waivers for these players. But like guys, I mean, sometimes I see lackadaisical moves from even sometimes you call me crazy. Landon Collins, sometimes he doesn't play up to par. Janoris Jenkins, sometimes he takes plays off. Eli Apple can't play. Eric Flowers, gets, tossed around like a rag doll.
Darian Thompson's been bad this year. He's been out of position. He's been a disappointment. I'll tell you that. B.J. Goodson's been hurt all year. I still like Casillas. I like Pierre-Paul. Pierre-Paul's going to have to get it together. It's very important for Pierre-Paul to be mature enough to go through. It's important for Vernon, Snacks Harrison. Dalvin Tomlinson hasn't even played. I am actually pretty damn high on this team. I think we're a lineman away from really doing something special. I look at this year and, the schedule broke. The offense was awful. The players saw that McAdoo didn't work. And I'm totally in the retool mode. I am totally not in the rebuild mode.
I'll tell you what.
I actually like Jerry Reese, was suckered into some of the wide receiver picks and not building the line.
Well,
but I really don't think he did a terrible job. I love the defense that he's built. He took it from worst to first. We were a terrible defense like 2 years ago. And last year, I know we beat up on some teams, but Spagnuolo has a legitimate chance to stay with this defense.
Well, I understand, what your point with Jerry Reese. Sometimes he's made good moves or not, but I feel like he was, even on the hot seat last year. I mean, he had to try to save his job. He paid $200 million in the offseason to get all these defensive guys. Yeah. I mean, I didn't really feel. I mean, it did, but it also didn't because, I mean, look at this year. They gave up, 55 points to the Rams. It was very inconsistent.
If it goes this way, it's a failure.
It was a very inconsistent, effort even on the defensive side for some games. Sometimes they wanted to play. Sometimes they didn't. That comes back to Reese, throwing all these monies to overpaying these free agents. And also even to add to Reese being gone, like from his rounds from 3 to 7, that he had, I can't even name any, really quality players that he's picked, in rounds from 3 to 7. I mean, to be honest with you, he only had one good draft, and that was in 2007, a full draft when you got guys like Ahmad Bradshaw in the 7th round. You got Jay Alford. You got guys that could really, play well like Kavika Mitchell and, those guys that really were, the blood and soul, of that, second and third, string people that comes in and contributors. And you need that in a 53-man roster. And Jerry Reese could not do that anymore. His time has, expired for basically, 2+ years now. And when you're trying to rebuild a team now, and my plan going forward is what I am going to predict is I'm going to see that, Eli will stay one more year. And the Giants,
I want this to be your plan. I want this to be your plan, Shenko.
Well, this is my plan, and I really feel like this is going to be it. This is going to be the chance. You know how, a similar situation would happen to the Colts where they had 1 year they were super bad. Peyton Manning was hurt. And you're going to have basically a year of, whoever it's going to be, either Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Baker Mayfield coming in, being a second stringer to Eli. Eli's going to be able to mentor these, any guys, quarterbacks that come in because, obviously learning from one of the greats in Eli Manning is really, first class for anybody to come into this organization. So I see that next year happening. I still see Eli being the starter, but I do see, a project, some projects coming in like Davis Webb, obviously, who is here right now learning our playbook. Sure. And also other guys like, I could see Josh Rosen or Sam Darnold coming in, even this year, because I don't think Sam Darnold's ready to come out. He could certainly come out and sit a year with Eli to be able to mentor him. And then after that, either giving the reins to Sam Darnold, after a couple years with Eli, whatever he's got left in the tank, and then give it to Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen or Baker Mayfield. When that comes around. I really see that happening. I do see them rebuilding in the draft. Obviously, when they bring in new guys, they're going to, retool this roster, hopefully, to be able to, rekindle the defense. And especially the offensive line needs to be number one, needs to be dressed ASAP. They cannot go any more years without drafting on any offensive lineman high. They need to address this now. It's been, way overdue. And they really need to solidify this offensive line before anything comes forward, any projects that come in, Eli Manning, all the quarterbacks I've named. So I really feel that's just the way the route they should go, for them to really, the Giants, because you're not just building for, 2 or 3 years. You're building for the next 12 or 15 years. And I really want to see – I don't want to throw all the eggs in one basket, for the next 2 or 3 years. I want to see the Giants, build for the next, for the long term. And that's what I hopefully will see for the Giants going forward. And we'll see what GM comes in to be able to do that. So it really is, the Giants are at a turning point. They're at the crossroads right now. They have the opportunity to really fix all of the problems they've had. Mm-hmm. So this really, like you said, this is it. You gotta solidify what you want to do, going forward. And I just looking forward to it. So
there's one quarterback that I think in this draft is a transcendent talent. And that's Josh Rosen. I look at Josh and the way that he can move in the pocket. He is so defined in his technique and the way that he can make throws and the way that he, his mental capacity is very elite. But to tell you the truth here, I don't want the Giants to – I don't know, Shenko. I believe the Giants are going to surprise you. I think they're going to do what you might not want them to do. I think they're going to beat Dallas this week. They're going to compete against the Eagles next week, but they're not going to win. They're going to beat the Redskins, and then they might have a team left that's a very difficult matchup. I think the Giants will get to 4 or 5 wins with Eli. Eli's going to play his tail off. He's going to play well. This team's going to rally. And then I look at the Giants. I'm not in favor of drafting. I don't think the Giants are going to get Josh Rosen. I think that they're going to trade this pick back, and that's exactly what I would do. I would roll with Davis Webb. I have so much confidence in Davis that he's going to win multiple Super Bowls with the New York Giants. If you listen to everything Davis says, if you watch Davis Webb and his progression, I'm totally fine with rolling with that guy. He could totally be a late round, like a Dak Prescott type of guy that can fill in. He loves Eli Manning, adores Eli Manning, takes notes with Eli Manning every single day. And then I would get a head coach that Eli Manning really can relate to for these next 2 to 3 years. I would get like a guy like David Cutcliffe, his college coach. I would reach out to Tony Dungy. I like both of those options. John Gruden, Jim Harbaugh, just coaches that develop quarterback play. And I would go that route. I would draft, I would trade back. You're going to get linemen. You could get Minka Fitzpatrick. You could get Darius Geis. You can get some talented receivers on the edge. I think this is a retool, and if they rebuild this thing, it's so unnecessary. And I think, Shenko, we're going to revisit this conversation. And if the Giants get in the right head coach that's a nice guy that can win and reunite this locker room, you're going to give a public apology to Jerry Reese, because I think that the Giants are not far away from being great.
Well, I love you.
Prisoners of the moment, big picture, we're not dead. We made a great move today, getting rid of Ben Mcadoo. We are finally on the right track, and we are a talented roster, and this one move will change everything. It's just a head coaching problem.
Man, I love you, man. But you know what makes this podcast great, is we disagreeing with our opinions. And
most fans are with you, saying, don't waste this pick, draft Darnold or Josh Rosen.
You can't.
As a third rounder. Josh Rosen has a lot of upside. Baker Mayfield is a smaller guy. I think
but small guys
doesn't fit into the Giants scheme.
Small guys do well in the NFL. I mean, look at Russell Wilson, Doug Flutie. There's so many short guys in the NFL that done well.
Okay.
But here's the thing, man.
I think Baker will do fine in the NFL, but man, I couldn't imagine that. But
the thing is, I will agree with you. Baker Mayfield would never survive in New York because he's always gotten in trouble. Grabbing his crotch. There's no way, shape, or form he was making it in New York, man. He would get in too much trouble.
Webb and him were in college together. In the same locker room at Texas Tech. That's what's crazy.
I know. That is funny. But I feel like, you cannot waste this opportunity because you do not pick in the top 5, once every, a couple years, unless if you're the Cleveland Browns, obviously. So I feel like you need to continue, because I don't think the Giants are even that good, even with, rejuvenated Eli, because they still don't have a running game. They still don't have any wide receivers. Dallas is still fighting for a playoff spot. The Eagles just came off a bad loss to Seattle, so they're going to have to win out.
Dallas and Washington are wins. They're going to be wins.
I hope not. I really want to pick so high in this draft. I want to get our solidifying piece for the future. I'm not just looking at 2 to 3 years down the line. I'm looking at picks, that's going to last, for 10 to 15 years down the line. But I'm not saying I'm ignoring Davis Webb, but I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket. I mean, when you look at the Redskins, that when they put all their eggs in one basket for RG3, and then they obviously got Kirk Cousins as a safety net, and look how that turned out. So I'm not really sold on the kid yet. I want to see more of this kid, obviously, on the field. I hear so many good things from you about him on his preparation for the game, always studying in the playbook, first one in, last one out type of guy.
Yes.
But you don't pick in the top 5 very often. You need to take advantage of that opportunity, and you need the right GM in place. And also, for your new head coach, you really need to get a guy who is a proven commodity, because you've already went that route with Ben McAdoo, with the hot coordinator at the time. Obviously, I do not want to go that route again, because that obviously backfired on us immensely. And I really want to get not a college coach, because I'm not a big believer of the college to the NFL person, because it's very rare for a quarterback or a coach to be able to go from college to the NFL and prove themselves well. The only guy I can really think of that has had success was Pete Carroll. Yeah. And, and that's really just, once in a blue moon. And I don't really want to make that risk.
Steve Spurrier failed at the Chip Spurrier. Yeah, there's been some guys, Shenko, that you mentioned.
I would throw the house at John Gruden. I know it's crazy, but, I really think that he would, really rejuvenate this Giants, brass and organization. And,
yes.
He would really, instill that fire. And, players would love him. He would be a player's coach. He loves the game. And to be able to surround yourself with that in the locker room, I would just throw the house for John Gruden, man. I just feel that he would be such a wonderful fit. And then I think the Giants would be back. They would be back, man, and they would be the big dog.
We need a swagger, a guy
that
players will smile, laugh with, enjoy their time with. I think another guy, like I'm going to throw out to you, Shenko, is Steve Mariucci of the NFL Network.
Maybe. I mean,
He
he's
won a
been out.
Super Bowl with the Niners, man.
He's been out of coaching for a while, but I mean, you could see.
Or Cowler.
Success.
Cowler.
I don't know if he's too old to coach now. I mean, he enjoys the analyst, but
there's not a ton of good options in the NFL, man. I mean, you're. Let me hear the popular names are Scott Linehan of the Cowboys, who's again a coordinator. I know he runs the ball. I don't want Jim Bob Cooter. That would be the worst possible selection.
Well, I tell you what, I want a defensive mind head coach, and I don't because we already tried an offensive mind. Really? That really didn't work too out well, obviously. So I think defense always wins championships. I preach that so much. Everybody else does preach it too. And it's so important because you need to have a foundation on that defensive side to, get back to that Giants football. When we went at the
issue. I think getting that running game in place.
Well, I'm not saying –
and we need our if the one thing about drafting a defensive guy, like whether it was Rex Ryan or Wade Phillips or even Vance Joseph, is that they're specialized in defense and they oftentimes don't communicate with the offensive side of the football.
Well, I'm not saying –
look at the best young coaches in the NFL, Doug Peterson and Sean McVay. They were both former quarterbacks and they look at the game from a quarterback's perspective. And I freaking love an offensive mind that can really run the football. I want a really tough offensive coach. But the key is whoever the coach has to be, he has to be nice guy. Very respectful to the media, classy, and the players have to love the guy. Even Rex Ryan, for as crazy – I'm not saying Rex is the guy. The players at least loved that guy, and that's so important. So important.
Well, yeah, you need that, but you have to look and understand the facts of the facts here about, when you look at a head coach, you want the guy to be able to instill that in his locker room and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
that's the most important thing to me is chemistry. And that's what Ben Mcadoo failed in a horrid way.
Well, sure. I mean, you can't. What I was saying earlier, you can't. Obviously, defense wins championships, but I wasn't trying to say, we're gonna, divert, all the attention to the defense. Yeah, the offense is a huge concern. You have to obviously address the offensive line, and that I feel like once you address that offensive line, I feel like you're going to be okay. I mean, you're going to, maybe bring in a new – you're not going to bring in a new system, but maybe, retool the offense a little bit, get rid of that McAdoo offense because that was horrible. Didn't do anything good for you. Right. And I just feel like once these –
shotgun, under center offense is what I really want.
Well, I do like the shotgun because our offensive line can't block, but I do – once we get that offensive line built, over the next couple of years, yeah, I want to go back to under center, I formation, ground and pound type of offense, run first type. And I really like this Wayne Gallman. He's really, he's a tough runner, in between the tackles. Orland Stark was good.
Look at Jacksonville, how Jacksonville built their team. I mean, that's a fun team. They're a quarterback away, and they run Leonard Fournette into that line every time, and it's enjoyable to watch. I want to move people. And when we went down to the link this year, with this offensive line and Eli and this hurry-up offense, it was nauseating to watch. It's been nauseating to not see any running game. And as good as Odell is, if he's your best offensive player, you're going to have a lot of trouble in this league. I'd love to see a running back, featured. We were at our best when it was Earth, Wind, and Fire, Jacobs, Bradshaw, and Derek Ward. That's when the offense was rolling. And then the quarterback, Eli, was able to hit the big body of Plexico Burress. You maybe had like a couple speedsters here and there, like Cruz, Dominic Hickson, some crazy guys. If you remember, Dominic Hickson and the set of tight ends we had in 2009 and 10.
Yeah, of course I remember Dominique Hickson. He had that great return in the Super Bowl in 42, to really, turn the tide in that Super Bowl for, in Giants' favor. But, I just really I still have a lot of emotions, with this whole move today. And, it is a joy and excitement to finally see that, we're going to see a culture change now. And I'm curious to see who's going to be the next guy at the helm for us. So,
I'm ecstatic. Anybody's better than Ben Mac. It's a wonderful, wonderful day. Like, finally he's out. and like we can be proud of I want somebody that we can rally behind, get proud to, and now it's going to be, it is very entertaining to see what John Mara is going to do. I wanted to ask you this question. I know that this isn't going to be a sexy question at all or something you're going to even want to ponder, but if Steve Spagnuolo, is there any chance if he performs well?
No.
So
I don't.
He's dead.
Well, I mean, he's dead to me, but I don't think he's, dead to John Mara. I mean, when you look at John Mara in the press conference today, he even offered the opportunity for Spagnuolo to be the head coach, next year. Mm-hmm. And, he didn't really do so well when he was the Rams head coach a couple of years ago. Right. I'm not saying he's not going to do well again, but, I'm just a little bit concerned with how he'll be able to handle that, because I feel like his defense has not even been that good, over the past, year or so. I mean, with all the talent that you have. So I really don't think he'd be a quality candidate, for the Giants. I don't think he would be a player's coach, and I just don't see he'd be a good fit, for us at all.
He's more of a coordinator, but I think he'd be more of a player's coach. Anyone would be more of a player's coach. And
sure,
2011 was a special defense with Spags, and last year, I think it's an opportunity. These players are going to have to play for him. These last 4 games are actually going to be really entertaining. And then you heard Mara. He wants to get the general manager in, let's see, when the season's over in January. By about before the Super Bowl, the Giants should have their next general manager. And that's very interesting, because then we're going to have to dive into that GM's persona. And there's a possibility the Giants go with an older head coach with Eli Manning, or they might just scrap this whole thing and take and try pretty young.
You know what the Giants need to find? They need to find another Sean McVay type of coach. I mean, a young guy, really a lot of fiery. I know, that's but exactly you need to find another needle in the haystack, because it's going to be hard to bring John Gruden out of ESPN. Bill Cowher the same way.
You got to knock on those doors and
do
your due diligence and dial those digits.
Yep. That's what you got. That's what you have to find. If we can find another Sean McVay, oh my God, it's gonna be pandemonium.
It's gonna be it's very hard to get an established head coach in this league. John Harbaugh isn't going anywhere. I don't think Jim Harbaugh is going anywhere. The Gruden thing, he always flirts and never takes. David Shaw is an option. I know from the college game. I like his persona. The key is just the players have to love the guy, and there has to be such a vetting process. The one thing I did like about what John Mara had to say is you could see he was deeply embarrassed and disappointed, and I'm glad that the Giants owner was that. And I thought that John Mara today, he stepped up, and as pissed off as I've been with John Mara's handling of everything the past year and not pulling this plug out sooner, he did a big step today for us.
Certainly. And I just really think how everything's going to turn out to be. And, we're going to continue doing more Giants podcasts about this. So stay tuned, guys. We're going to probably do another segment, in a couple of days of who could potentially be the next head coach for the New York Giants. And, we're going to continue to follow, all the latest NFL topics around the NFL right now as we get into December. The playoffs are around the corner. So we'll definitely get Gen Central back on here and really, dive into other, great NFL topics that we are accustomed to right now, and I'm very excited for this.
It's going to be a fantastic ride, Shenko, and I mean, it's been an exhausting couple of days, man, with not only the Giants, but college football. I mean, everything going on with Scott Frost going to Nebraska, but just, the New York Giants today make a huge splash. They finally get rid of Ben Mcadoo. We sat on this podcast 2 years ago. We predicted what we wanted. And if I can paraphrase what we want, you're in the camp of definitely drafting a quarterback and not squandering the pick, having Webb, Eli, and another guy battle it out. And if it were up to me, if Josh Rosen is there, that's the only quarterback I would ever consider in this draft for the Giants. Other than that, it's push it back and then see what you get with like a Darius Geis, a running game. And one thing is, I mean, if the Giants achieve incredible things, if they do the impossible next year or in 2 years, we're going to look back on Jerry Reese in a different light. So I'm really excited to see that progression. It's something that keeps you going in life, is really seeing how this puzzle will eventually unfold, because it's such a debate amongst Giants fans right now. And the future is going to be just incredibly intriguing. So that's Matt Shenko. Spencer Grossinger here, man. What a podcast, brother.
You too, man. Appreciate it.
I'll see you tomorrow, big guy.
All right, man. Sounds good, buddy.
You